Good afternoon. Thanks for joining True Rebels Attain Victory lunch break discussions.
Good afternoon.
This is Travis Sellers.
I'm John Wilson.
We are going to have conversations that cover, a whole host of topics. We want to keep it real fresh. But today's topic, we're going to discuss a follow-up of our N-word muting discussion, and try to tie in the 1619 project, which we will say we're not going to do the whole book, but I would say that we should go out and grab that book and read it.
Absolutely. Shout to Nicole Hannah Brown.
Yes, it was great.
Wonderful woman, beautiful
great,
sister.
Yes, great book and study, and it was in the New York Times, so it became this whole entire book. So I appreciate it, and I think that you can gain a lot from it. And yeah, for the N-word.
We're going to have to eventually talk a little bit more about her too. And I say that because, there's some really important stuff about what she's done and her contribution. So we'll get there. But eventually, her journey is interesting, and it's worth noting.
So I wanted to add that, in the book from the last time, the reason why I was, not saying that I had, because I read it recently over the past few months, but I was already on the pathway of like ending the N-word, mutant N-word. I was just trying to figure out how, what is the best way to do it? What is the best way to really address the subject with my favorite artists, like Drake and Jay-Z and Beyonce, Little Uzi, all the people I listen to. How can I address this with them in a way that it's not being judgmental? Like, we're victims. I feel like we're victims, even though they're making a lot more money than me. I still think they suffer, and I think if you listen to Jay-Z, I think he knows. That's the thing. I think he knows that we're all, because even in his 440 project, he mentioned, I think it was, I'm trying to think, what was it? The OJ song? When he mentioned, we're still N-words, right? I don't necessarily, agree with that, but the perspective, the deep understanding of the pain that it is to be African American in this country at times, even if you have this, all the success that he has, I guess career wise and wealth wise, popularity, it's still a struggle.
Right.
Right. And so the same way that you'll look at that, his struggle, even if he has the success, even if he has the money, imagine with that N-word, the impact it has on people who are not that wealthy, people who are not that popular, who don't have the education. The impact that it has on people like me, my children, it's so detrimental. And I wanted to tie it in with the 1619 project because there was the same pain. It's so much pain in there. And you read it, you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Just the tricks.
Sure.
That we thought for a while, sometimes I think that I'm inadequate for not having, this or not having that. But there was an actual reparations that they gave. I'm going more into it now. There's more reparations given to other folks, but not to us, right? So we're left feeling inadequate. We're left feeling like we should be N-words. We even call each other N-words, but we don't see the detrimental plan, the specific strategic moves to not only keep us out of certain economic growth and development, education development, because they want us to be the N-words. They want us to think that we're N-words. It's just like almost Carter G. Woodson said, we prefer the back door now that we have been, psychologically abused. We prefer the back door. So anything that's the back door, that's us, right? Anything that has an N-word is a representation of that, right? And not only is it represent us now, if you try to tell somebody not to say it, it's almost like a fight. I mean, you had a young man that said,
Absolutely.
"Man, this is part of my name," and I saw like, oh, Mike Tyson. I forgot to say this. Mike Tyson was on with Keenan, and his pledge for the N word. He fought for the N word to be called not for other people, but himself. He referred to himself. His identity was that. And I wanted to say, Mike, and anyone who feels that way, everyone who feels that way, if you look at the 1619 Project, if you don't read the whole thing, let's go to that music section where it first started out talking about, and I got kind of like thrown off because I didn't know where it was going. Motown, the entertainment industry,
Right.
that this new energy that they were bringing. I'm not really sure about what was different before.
Okay.
Because I wasn't that born. I don't
Right.
only can read, but I can understand.
Right.
Just like the imagery that that we've seen over the years, it was high level,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Dignified.
Yeah.
The dress was dignified. Men were wearing tux, suits,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
And I mean, all the way up until Earth, Wind, and Fire. I mean, they were a little bit
Sure. I mean, right.
eclectic.
Right. No, that's a very good word for that because that's what it was. Of course.
But it was always
More show.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was dignified in some
Sure.
way, right?
Sure. Yep. I would say so.
I can't say everyone. I mean, but it wasn't this. I don't think it is what it is now in the rap industry, where it's it's really, if I have money, so I get to disrespect everyone else.
So, what would you say to them saying two things? You're going to mess up our ability to make money if we take that word out. If we take that word out, we're not able to be effective as artists, number one. And number two, the other part of that coin would be, well, us saying it like that takes the power out of the word. So we're perhaps we're saying it like that so that it won't have the
the harmful
effectiveness,
effect.
the harmful effects. And we're calling ourselves that. So we take the power away from them
right
by calling ourselves
right. I mean, it would.
now, so I should preface it by saying, I think it's absurd personally. Okay. So don't, it's not like I don't know, but I'm just,
I understand.
I'm saying sometimes.
And I would say that, it would take more than 30 seconds.
But
I would try to appeal to them by saying that, I once read, I want to give credit to the 1619 Project. Not that it was the only research out there, but I think, now that, this is not a part of what I would say, but now that I think that strategically it's been pushed to the side. They're trying to mute it because of the rich history that it has, I think all around. But I would say, yeah, man, I was reading the 1619 Project, the music section in there. Did you read that? That's what I say to them. Did you read that section? I know they didn't, but I'm gonna say, did you read that section? You should. But in there, it talks about the minstrelsy, the minstrel shows. And it was intrigued by how and who began the minstrels and why they did it. They did it because they wanted to mimic our people. They wanted to mimic the artists that were forced to perform in the masters' houses for free or for extra food or for a coin. But they did have some freedoms on Sundays to go out and perform on street corners and whatever. But even though we were formulating at that time American music, other white men felt the intense that we were dehumanized way, that these are not subhumans.
Right.
How are they doing the music that we brought to them?
But of course, even in that is a certain form of envy, though, right?
Right.
So that's exactly
that's the trick, right?
Sure.
And then once you go into this whole, like you said, this envious stage and jealousy,
right?
Out of that,
and then project something negative out of it. When the reality is, they're actually moved by the music themselves in ways that are amazing.
They're performing it in their houses,
right?
Okay,
they're performing in their houses.
So out of that envy, they developed this whole mimicking, this whole disparaging
Even the
way,
suffering they would mimic.
right,
Right.
of our people and our music. And that's how it started, was a white man joking around about how we're performing and how we dance. And then it turned into this whole industry because other whites feeling the same way, they loved it. And not only first people say it's people down south. No, it was on Broadway in New York
Absolutely.
City,
Absolutely.
Philadelphia,
Yep.
Baltimore. They had these minstrel shows that white men were performing on.
Right.
Oh, they had a whole, like, and it said in the book, it said that these shows were not just regular. These were full performances of white men in blackface. You couldn't pay, you couldn't, a black man could not get in until about 30 years later. They allowed black men, because that's the only way that they could perform and to make money as entertainers in that world, was to be minstrel shows themselves.
Right. Sure. Right.
So they're doing the same exact thing, the mimicking,
Yep.
the using the N word,
Yep.
just like the white men did
And that's
in the
the
minstrel
tie-in.
show. That's what I forgot to tie in. The use of the N word, nigger and nigga,
Yep.
was used interchangeably in their performances. So when people say, "Oh, it was a difference between," no, that they used it both terms, right? So don't get that mistake. Don't get the mistake that you made this choice to use these terms. You are in a propaganda engine that's saying, "Yeah, you're going to use these terms
Right.
because this is who you are,
Right.
and you need to learn this is who you are because this is what we taught you, and you need to know, and it needs to be in your music. And if it's not in your music, you can't get a deal."
I think so.
That's what I mean. That's why I would say you can't even get a deal if you're not even doing it.
Well, I think that so.
And doing all the doing all the mimicking, this over sexualization, the over aggressiveness, the guns, the killings, and all that stuff. You have to do that in the music because you don't have a choice. And if you think you do, I'm gonna say you are mistaken. Do something peaceful, do something loving, and see what happens to you.
So no,
Get your
Trav,
own-
I think you're right on it. No, I think I say that I think you're right on it, and I say that you're right on it because, like you said in the 1619 project, it actually it shows you that what we're seeing now is not new, that it was designed that way, and people are following that playbook.
Right.
Like you said, the using the N word interchangeably. It didn't matter whether or not it was Nigger or A, whatever the situation is.
It's a silly argument.
It's a silly argument on its face. The fact that there are times that we've tried to accept it, or we tried to have intellectual conversations, debates about it, is really embarrassing.
It really is.
It's embarrassing on its face. Even there've been scholars, intellectuals, and some current people that we know who are college professors who've had discussions about this, which again, like you said, it was absolutely silly. But the other part of that is there's some shared responsibility in this. And we've got artists that are doing it. We have to hold them to a greater standard. And again, man, we always say, I'm not trying to take money from anybody. I want them to make money.
Right, but it's not on our backs, though.
I want them to be these great entrepreneurs. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't know, my throat is a little dry, but I want them to make money. I know that they're great artists. I know that they put out products that lots of people love, but they've got a responsibility to realize that their words hurt people too, and we feel hurt too. So we were making a point a couple shows ago that a woman out of Australia, Hannah, had a condition and was hurt by certain things, and she appealed to artists that listened to her. Well, I'm appealing to these artists too,
Right.
and I'm appealing to them and saying that the N-word hurts me, hurts us personally, collectively, and they're amongst the people that it hurts as well.
Right.
And I know that it starts at home. Don't get me wrong. Your children don't use that word. My children don't use that word.
Hopefully they don't.
Well, right.
In the private, you know how they do when they get
children
amongst their peers.
Of course.
Don't fall into that peer pressure.
Right. But I mean, for the most, but it wasn't that we taught them that though, right? It wasn't that we taught them that it was acceptable to use it. So they know that, if they sneak somewhere and use it, all right, that's that. That's kind of how you have a civil society, is that people say, all right, sometimes they'll say things in the dark that they don't say out loud.
But
or out somewhere
well,
else.
I have to be honest. I did for a period of time. I did listen to a lot of the hip hop music that did
Always
have
did.
that word
Sure.
all in it. I repeated the language, repeated their lyrics
Hmm.
as if it was the best thing, the best art on earth. But I'm no longer. It's been some time now, so it's not like it's new. Okay, I'm not new at this. Okay,
Well, and I'm
but I'm
glad you
just,
did.
but
I'm glad you saw the light, is what I'm
yeah,
saying. I
it's
mean,
like
many
yo,
of us did. I never accepted that, and I never appreciated. I got to be honest with you. I never had an appreciation for that word,
I can't say that
in hip hop. I never did.
I can't say that I did. I've struggled with it. Let me put it that way.
Oh,
I had struggles with. It was almost like a interpersonal struggle
right.
that I was dealing with, and more recently, I'm like, man, forget that interpersonal struggle. I'm not gonna be the one on the side when I go into a concert and I'm feeling all uncomfortable
Right.
because I'm having this interpersonal struggle because everyone is accepting
And
it. Like what?
and here's the
And
thing.
Hannah proved it. Like we don't have to do
Well,
that.
not only did she prove it, but also the bottom line is, these same tough guys, these same dudes that's putting out that stuff like that, will not use words that they know are harmful to other people. You
True.
know that, right? So they're not. So even though many of them are men that are heterosexual and maybe you know men love their gender to the point where they could be called toxic masculinity. These same dudes won't walk up to someone who's gay and call them a faggot in their street or in their faces, or put that type of harmful language in a song.
Right.
None of them will, right? They won't walk up to some
True.
Italian person and say, get this guinea out of here, blah blah blah. They won't do it,
Oh, this
right?
is my guinea.
Right? Yeah, they won't do it, right? These
Right.
same people that are claiming all of this, freedom, and they're tough guys and they do this and they do that, are people who know how to regulate their language and not say such things to other people.
Right.
It's time for them to have that same type of responsibility to us. Now, we have our own responsibility too, right? Like where we don't accept it, but it's gotten to the point where to your point, there's a struggle. I think there's an inflection point where we're at as a people, where some of us are saying, well, I'm just so tired of fighting it. Just let them call us that.
Yo, no.
And then there's some of us who are saying, no, we can't allow that, because for generations now we'll have to be dealing with this. Generations from now, like your son, his children won't know what it's like to be called queer.
Right.
Any other term that you can use for people who love each other of the same gender that is negative. He won't know what that is, and when he hears it, it'll be a teachable moment where they'll say that was a long time ago in a
Right.
period where people use that to describe people of the same gender who absolutely love each other. Because at the end of the day, that's really what matters, is their love and how they express that, and how that's empowering for them and their families. Generations from now, you'll be able to do it because it would have been put to rest. But this word won't be, right. So when, like we were discussing before,
Hopefully it will be.
well, we certainly, it should be.
Hopefully this will be
But here's
the
the
day
thing.
that we try to change it.
Right, but yeah, but I mean, like, if you're looking at someone who's listening to Motown, to use your thing,
Right.
where you're listening to these wonderful songs of devotion, love, dedication, and all of that.
Yeah, I know.
When you sit down or you get in an elevator, instead of you hearing something like whatever, any number of songs in Motown, you'll be hearing Straight Outta Compton.
Well, if we
With,
do it the
with all
right way,
the
it just won't be included in
well,
the
I
art.
hope so, but right now,
It
it's
is.
popular, and it is,
Right.
and it's too accepting. Right now, it's too accepting. It's to the point where people are like, and they do that because, hey, if you're saying you're that, then you must be, and it's acceptable. We're forcing unfortunately, too many influential people are forcing the issue to men.
Yeah, and I think that you said something about when people are using it to reverse the power.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what they
that's
think.
I think that's yeah. I was saying I was
It's
just
a
thinking in my
BS.
mind that is a weak
It is a
attempt.
BS argument, right? For
It's a
using
weak
it.
attempt, not only for using it, but it's a weak attempt at getting some healing from our past. And I would challenge you. I would challenge everyone out there. The way that we really get healing is to in negative connotation, right? If you had a toxic relationship, you end the toxic relationship. You end the
Absolutely.
toxic.
Absolutely.
You know how people use toxic now, or the trauma. We just try to eliminate the trauma, right? We try to do something in reverse of it. So why don't we try to reverse that? And I think that if you are really serious about holding on to this term, like I don't know if I ever challenged, but I said, think about how is it helping us? Has
Good
it helped
question.
us educationally, economically, politically? How has it helped our communities?
Right.
And if you can
Right.
prove that, then maybe if you can prove that it's helped us, which you can't, so stop
Yeah, I
it.
mean, it's
You
still
can't, because
it's
we're at the bottom of all those statistically. All the healthcare, we had the worst. We suffer from the worst of all the worst.
any metric that you
Yeah,
can
it's
measure in terms of you know the health of
yeah.
people, we're almost squarely at the bottom of it. But I wanted to
There's
say
a.
this.
Let me finish this.
Yeah, sure.
There's an economic divide, right? They say the economic disparity. So the 0.01% of the individuals in the industries or in entertainment. So it's not only just music, but it's entertainment. Their use of the N word in their art. They're the top percent, the 1%ers. So everyone else is suffering from the results of not only your art. You say, oh, it's not really hurting people. I mean, how's it helped us?
Right.
It hasn't helped us,
Right.
right? So I say, take your time out. Spend time trying to get this reparations, because everyone else get reparations besides us, right? We haven't got our reparations. So a way to heal is not only to heal reparations economically, but heal from this emotional abuse and toxic self-identity that we have attached ourselves to. That's what I was going to say. That's what you should be helping us do.
And I just wanted to take a moment, and very good point. But I just wanted to take a moment to say that
What's that?
I don't want to, as I mentioned some of those words that I know are harmful.
Right.
I want people who are a part of the people that may be a part of those communities, whether or not they're white, black, Italian, gay, straight. I want them to realize that ultimately we should be allies in the same fight, because we're suffering sort of from the same thing. So if I said something that sounds offensive, it wasn't because I don't agree with it, or I'm not, that I'm trying to be offensive to you. It's because the reality is those are stigmas that are attached to those harmful words harm all of us. And all of us should be a part of trying to rid ourselves of it. So regardless of what your racial background is, your culture is, you shouldn't sit by on the sidelines and say, well, it's cool for them to say that about themselves as long as they're not saying it about me. No, your silence is part of the problem. I'm not trying to make this, I just want all of us to understand in the human family, as a certain sector of us suffer, all of us do. It's only a matter of time before someone continues to say, yeah, they're already marginalized and now you're next, right? That happens, unfortunately.
Right.
So as I'm saying these things, I don't want to offend anyone that is gay. When I said those words, anyone that happens to be Italian or Irish or whatever, no, we know that it's out there. We have to address the elephant in the room. I mean, let's we have to address the elephant in the room. Let's have clear, lucid discussions about this and about the harmful effects of it, and then do what we can to stop it. That's where I'm coming from. Not that I use that language, because I don't, and not because I want to harm anyone's, your feelings or something like that, because I don't do that either.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's really hurtful. That's what we want to let people know. It's really hurtful, and I think it's detrimental to our children. They have to go through this self identity where it's degrading. It's like, why would you want to put your own children through this whole phase
Right.
of you're inward, but I'm in school with only predominantly white schools, and then I don't want to be called the N-word, but it's in the music, but don't call me an N-word. Is it okay? Why would
Right.
we would even want to have our children having that dialogue or that type of
Right.
I don't even know if you can call it intellectual I guess intellectual conversation. That's not really intellectual to me. It's
Yeah,
kind of idiotic. Oh, excuse me. Can you say idiotic?
yeah, why
But it's
not?
really bad. It's
Of
not
course you say
good.
idiotic. Well, of course you can say that. If it's
Like,
idiotic, then it
it's
is.
not. It's not smart. It's not a smart thing to do. And I know all those people who have all that money. That's why they kids are struggling. Some of them anyway. Some of them are struggling because we gotta be more. We got to be self identity is important.
Absolutely.
It means something. These
Absolutely.
words
Of course it
mean
does.
something.
Of course it does.
And psychologically, we can go on through that. We can bring psychologists on, and they would explain all. Not even talking about the N word, but just other words. When you have self positive thoughts, it brings so much more growth and development for you as a person. When you have these negative terms, these negative stigmas on you, it hurts you to the core, and you can't escape it. And that's why we want to have a discussion later on.
And but that's where,
Yeah.
leading into that,
Yeah.
that's where
That was gonna,
feeling like that is dangerous, and it leads right into one of the discussions that we like to move forward into.
yeah, which was the violence in the city of Philadelphia. Yeah, we need to have that conversation because it's plaguing. It's like a plague. It's sick.
Right.
It's terrible, and it's not. We're victims in one sense, but then there's some personal responsibility as well.
And you know me, I'm big on personal responsibility. I'm huge on that. Like I don't ascribe anything to anyone that I wouldn't personally, if I felt that I needed to change, I wouldn't ask them to do anything to change that I wouldn't be willing to do as well. And I'm saying that to say this, that bruh, bottom line is, all of this changing that we're talking about, this stuff begins at home. It does. And whether or not they're being influenced by social media, entertainment, music, whatever. Bottom line is the core of where things begin is at home. And when you have that foundation at home that is relatively strong,
Right.
it mostly provides you an opportunity to know not to use harmful language, not to do, whatever, not to say things that are going to be, harmful and negative to other people. So in our communities, brothers and sisters, anybody that's under the auspices of our voice or looking at our show, be mindful of that. Talk with your family members about it. Talk to people in the masjid. Talk to people in your churches. Let it be known that this word we're putting it out to pasture, and make certain that in our families we just have to, it's just one of those things where we have the discussion that it is unacceptable for us to use that language, just as it would be if you were using MF in the house or
Right.
whatever. I mean, that too is something that you wouldn't want to use in a home. You shouldn't be using this word in a home. It starts there, and then hopefully, ideally, it kind of grows out exponentially.
You have to mute it. You have to mute it. You have to mute it. So thanks for joining us for this discussion. Hopefully next time you join us at True Representing Victory. Subscribe to us on YouTube and at True Representing Victory on Instagram. Boy Travis Sellers.
John Wilson.
We'll see you next time we discuss
Thank you, guys.
violence in Philadelphia.
Thank you very much.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.